to be sent and whom to be sent. So there is a proper procedure that is laid down by FSSR. Apart from that, once the sample reaches to the labs, how the food analyst checks that the sample that he is receiving at the lab end is intact, and what next process step he has to take up, and then how after completion of the analysis is a very important part is that how he is giving his opinion. So there are two types of formats as per regulations. So those formats are to be followed by the food analyst, and once the results are there, then the enforcement or the legal prosecution starts against the food business operators.
Yes, ma'am. This is total procedure. How to proceed for the analysis into the lab.
Yes.
So very briefly, you have explained this process, but I think you have mentioned that there are different labs are there. So what are the different labs are there with whatever we can say FSS Act is there, and we are analyzing our product into the different labs. So there are different types of lab are there for this analysis?
Yes, definitely. So FSSAI has, as per the Act 43.1 and 43.2, there are two kinds of laboratories that is recognized by FSSAI. So under section 43.1 of Act, FSS Act, it talks about the primary notified food testing laboratories. So the basic purpose of primary food testing laboratories is the first time when a food safety officer goes on the field and he picks up the samples, he has to send the sample, the FSO has to send the sample to this primary food testing laboratories, and once the results are out by the food analyst, then it is being judged by the respective designated officers and food safety officers, and they will decide that whether the sample will go for any kind of appeal procedures, because FSSAI Act also gives a opportunity to the food business operators to go for an appeal procedure. Suppose he is not agreeing or he is disagreeing with the food analyst report, so he has been given a chance to go for a repeat analysis. Now that repeat analysis is known as referral analysis. So these referral analyses are done in a separate set of laboratories. So the separate set of laboratories are nothing but called as referral laboratories under the section 43.2. So once those results are being given by these referral laboratories, now the actions, we may say it as a penal actions or as laid down by the FSSAI, it may end up into imprisonment or any kind of penalties in terms of cash. So these will be judged after the referral laboratories results are shared by the food analyst. But one thing here I would like to highlight here is that the referral laboratory analysis reports are the final report, and it is the result declared by these laboratories are the final results. We do not have any third chance of appeal for the FBOs to do again a repeat analysis. And then in the regulation, there is another scope called as reference food testing laboratories. So these reference testing food laboratories are nothing but they may be a primary notified laboratories or they may be a referral laboratories, but they have a very unique the functions, and the major function is that they will support other laboratories, we may say handhold the laboratories to work properly in developing the methods, in validating a method. So this is the main objective of a reference laboratories.
Yes, madam. Whatever these three types of laboratories are there, that is actually you have used the word recognition is there, and these three types of laboratories are recognized by FSSAI. So madam, just I want to ask this question by curiosity. All these labs are government or any private labs are there?
Sure. To clarify this, we have a network of private laboratories also and government laboratories also.
Okay. And what are the specific role and functions of these laboratories to ensuring the food safety and food quality of the whatever the samples are there, whatever the foods are there? What is specific role of these laboratories?
The specific role of the laboratories is that once they receive the samples from FSOs or from designated officers, may it be a primary sampling analysis or we may go for a referral analysis. So primarily the intent is that they should provide the results in a set period of time. And the set period of time over here by FSSAI is 14 days if it is a domestic sample, and 5 days if it is a imported samples. So they have to generate the reports and give their opinion in 3 forms. One opinion whether the product is misbranded, or the product is substandard, or the product is unsafe. So under these 3 particular opinions they will be giving the reports. So this is the most important part and function of a laboratory.
Yeah, I mean, laboratories are playing very crucial role in maintaining the food quality and safety, we can say. And you have mentioned that recognition and one another regulation is there, that regulation related to recognition and notification of laboratories. So whatever the private laboratories are there, government laboratories are there, what are the specific criteria, or we can say what is procedure to recognize any laboratory as a referral laboratory or as a primary laboratory? That means we can say how this FSSAI will recognize any laboratory for the analysis and testing of the food materials.
Okay. This is very important because being a regulatory body of the country, it is very important that the competency of the laboratory should be judged. Now, how the competency is being judged? So, FSSAI has empowered the competency of the laboratory through, they should seek ISO 17025 accreditation from NABL. Then they should have adequate capability and competency for testing of food safety and quality parameters. Then it is very, very important that whenever it is called as recognized by FSSAI, there should be a notified food analyst also in the laboratory. So food analyst is a very key person in the laboratory who, after the complete analysis, has to give the report and has to sign the report in the given format in the Act and the rules. So appointing a food analyst in the laboratory is another important requisite in order to recognize any laboratory, be it a referral laboratory or a primary notified laboratory.
So is any criteria is there to appoint this analyst?
Yes, there is definitely a criteria to appoint a food analyst. FSSAI does a yearly examination of food analyst, and this yearly examination of food analyst, in this we invite the applications from the prospective candidates, and there is a desirable qualification and experience limit been given in the FSSAI rules. So those candidates who fulfill those desirable qualification and the experience desired by the rule, they are allowed to sit in the exam. Once they clear this examination, which is conducted by FSSAI, then they are called to be as qualified food analyst. Now, just they are qualified at this point of time. Now, so if there is a laboratory, so X, name it as ABC laboratory. So if they want to have a food analyst, they have to search the food analyst from these pool of food analysts who got qualified from FSSAI.
Means whatever the examination taken by the FSSAI,
yes.
Then only those
candidates are allowed, and any, be it a private laboratory or be it a government laboratory, they can hire any food analyst who have qualified the FSSAI examination. And once they get into these, any of the laboratories, maybe private or maybe a government, then the laboratories have to intimate or communicate to FSSAI stating that so and so person has been recruited or has been deputed as food analyst in their organization, and then we notify them. That's a gadget notification, we do it for them, and we write that this particular person who is a qualified food analyst and is now associated with particular laboratory. So this is known as gadget notification, and where we call it as notified food analyst.
Okay. So if any laboratory is fulfilling this all criteria,
Yes.
then only that
Yes.
laboratory is recognized as FSSAI notified laboratories.
Laboratories.
Okay. Madam, if any recognized or any laboratory, those who are not complying with the whatever the standards given by, we can say, our FSSAI, is there is any penalties or any action will be taken from the FSSAI on that particular laboratory?
We do take you had asked me a question on the obligation of laboratories. So the main focus of the laboratory should be that they should conduct the test in approved premises within the recognized scope. Then they notify the food authority of any changes in their premises or in the testing scope also. And time to time they have to report whatever changes is happening in their premises, be it in the area of the scope where they have taken accreditation, or be it the premises changes, or be it a change in the food analyst as well. So these are very, very key areas, important areas where the laboratories are supposed to provide these informations. Now, apart from that, if a laboratory turns up and FSSAI finds out that the lab has done certain kind of fraudulent activity.
Yeah, means this actually this is very crucial part.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if a lab has done some kind of fraudulent activities, or suppose we have laid down certain obligations points in regulations, and the lab is unable to meet those obligations, or there are chances that we get complaints from the labs by some other third persons. So we do all the root cause analysis of these laboratories, and basis the outcome of that those root cause, we have to either treat them, we have to give some penalties. Now the penalty is in terms of, say it as suspension, or we call it as denotification. So there are two kinds of penalties. Now there is a suspension. Suspension means, suppose the lab has not been able to fulfill, the NABL accreditation has got expired for the lab, but the lab has not intimated to us. However, the lab has already started the renewal process for the accreditation. In that case, if the lab is not able to provide any information to us, then we immediately suspend the lab. So in that particular case, the lab will not be able to analyze any samples which is reaching to their premises. Now if you call it as denotification or derecognition, so suspension happens only at least for 6 months.
6 months.
So in those 6 months, we give them a time that you correct your non-compliances and then come back and then report to us.
They have to provide the certification.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they have to provide all the details, and then if the authority finds it to be suitable and satisfactory, then it gets revoked. Now there is very harsh kind of penalty, if I say, that's a denotification.
Okay.
So this is something I notified. FSSAI notified a laboratory. Now I am going to denotify them. Okay. So whenever there is a fraudulent activity, in case of insolvency has happened, now the lab doesn't exist at all. Okay. Maybe something has gone wrong with the lab administration, or some kind of complaint, a serious level of complaint has happened, or in any case, lab is bringing disrepute to FSSAI also. Yeah. So in that case, we have to derecognize or denotify the lab. So when the denotification happens to these laboratories, for 2 years, they cannot do any kind of accreditation as well. They cannot go back and get the renewal also.
So it will take
2 years of gap.
So that is a harsh penalty is there. Okay, whatever the penalties are there, and we have already discussed the different criteria to recognize by the FSSAI. But what is actual process, means how they will collect samples, and whatever the procedure of analysis, means whatever the sampling of food, and how the analysis of food is done by the laboratories, or whatever the we can say what is standard protocol given by the FSSAI.
See, analysis, when this part where FSSAI lays down the standard about sampling, there are 3 kinds of sampling. Yeah. One is legal sample. So legal sample is that where food safety officers or authorized officers. So authorized officers are the one who pick the samples of import products, which is coming into the country, and the food safety officers are the one who pick the samples from the field in the domestic market. Now there are legal samples, or we call it as enforcement samples. Then there is an appeal sample also, as I have already explained that on how does the appeal sample goes. So this is one category of sample analysis, and the third category of sample analysis is surveillance type of samples. So every time it is not needed that the legal sample will be picked up. It is also that sometimes we have to take surveillance mode of approach also. So we have to identify where are the hotspots. So these are the samples that are also being sent for the analysis. The most important part of sampling is done by the food safety officers. This is the most important responsibility that a food safety officer carries with them. It all starts from the sample collections, the procedure they are adhering to it, because they have to fulfill certain documentations as per the rules. Once they complete those documentations, then they have to seal the samples in a proper way, and then they have to hand over the samples also. In no way the sample integrity should get lost. This is very important. Be it the point where food safety officer or an authorized officer has picked up the sample, and when it is moving from food safety officer place to the laboratory, in between also it has to be ensured that there is no integrity loss of the sample. So this is very, very important. Once the integrity is lost, then the report doesn't hold any good. Then the documentation is very important, be it at food safety officers level, and the second part is at the laboratory level, where the food analyst has to write or give the opinion in a proper format. Then compliance and enforcement, that is very important. How does a food analyst knows that the opinion that he is going to give on what kind of what are the clauses they have to fulfill, whether the opinion writing should be very important, that how they are writing, be it misbranded, if they are writing this product as misbranded, under what clause they are stating this as misbranded, if it is unsafe, how they have arrived at the conclusion that this is unsafe, and then if it is substandard, then how have they arrived at this conclusion. So these are very critical areas where the entire sampling procedure and giving the results of these particular samples are very important.
Means whatever the sample, whenever we are collecting sample, we have to take care. Whatever the conditions are there, in that conditions only intact sample we have to report, we have to submit to the laboratory, and we have to make all the documentation.
Yes.
Right.
And in case suppose a laboratory finds that the sample that has been received at the lab end is not fit for analysis, they have the rights to report it back that the sample is unfit for analysis. You send us the next set of sample.
Okay. So how they will collect the samples, means any suo moto or any if complaint received, like that?
See, there is a proper procedure of collecting the sample. So 4 sets of samples have been collected. So first sample is sample 1. Sample 1 will go to food analyst.
Okay.
So being an food safety officer, once he has to make 4 sets of samples.
Okay.
First set of sample will go to the food analyst. Second set of sample, there are 2 other parts. One is sample 2 part and sample 3 part. Same product, quantity is also same, but these 2 part will go to the designated officers.
Okay.
A level up of the food safety officer. Now sample 4th. Now FSSAI Act rules and regulations have given an equal opportunity to a food business operator that parallelly he has been also given the opportunity to send the sample to his own lab or any lab he has any choice to it. So he has been also given a power to exercise this.
That means we have to collect 4 samples.
4 sets of samples.
Yeah, same sample but in 4 groups.
4 groups, 4 sets.
Yes.
So what happens once the sample, one set will go to the laboratory part. The laboratory are those labs, since I have been talking about only the labs, so consider this as recognized labs.
Okay.
So no samples goes out of non-recognized laboratories. So whatever samples have been collected by the food safety officers, they will go to the notified laboratories. And they are the first notified, that means it is primary notified laboratories. Now you can connect it. What I said, what are the different types of laboratories? So I said first that key it is a primary notified lab. Now you can see that the sample 1 is going to food analyst, but it is a food analyst from primary notified labs. Now sample 2 and sample 3, it's the set 2 and set 3 has been kept intact with designated officer. Yeah. So designated officer, what he does, he keeps 2 sets of sample because sometimes the sample may get lost, or there might be a damage to the sample by the time it reaches to the food analyst laboratories. So food analyst can again ask for a second set of sample. So DO keeps one set of sample with it, and another set of sample which DO is keeping is to refer it for appeal sample. So once there is any kind of appeal procedure comes into the picture, where FBO is requesting that you do a repeat analysis, or a designated officer thinks that we have to again go for a repeat analysis, here comes the role of these extra sample from the designated officer. Now the sample 4 is again been given to a chance to FBO right at the first place itself. When a food safety officer was collecting sample 1 and sending it to the primary notified lab, at the same time he gives an opportunity to the food business operator to send the fourth part of 4. If it is not been sent to any of the primary notified lab, this will again go back to the designated officer.
Okay. So this 4 sample we have to analyze, and then only whatever the conclusion is there, we can reach to the conclusion. Thank you, ma'am. We have discussed this silent features, then sampling process, then penalties and recognition process of the laboratories by FSSI. And we will take a short break for 2 minutes. And before that, I would like to share this Indira Gandhi National Open University School of Agriculture offering the different programs, courses in the field of food safety and quality management and agriculture, like BSc Food Safety and Quality Management, MSc Food Safety and Quality Management, Postgraduate Diploma in Food Safety and Quality Management, Diploma in Dairy Technology, Diploma in Fruits Value Added Products from Fruits and Vegetable, Diploma in Meat Technology, and postgraduate certification in agriculture policy, and diploma in agribusiness management, and masters in business management, that is agribusiness management. So right now applications are invited, that is admission process is open. So you can visit our website www.ignou.ac.in and Samarth admission portal to enroll yourself. Thank you. We will meet after break.
We wear clothes on a daily basis. But have we ever wondered, where do our clothes come from? Who makes our clothing? And who are the people and the process responsible for the whole manufacturing of our clothing? If you want to know more about this, Indira Gandhi National Open University from the School of Continuing Education has launched a program which is Certificate in Apparel Merchandising. There are many benefits after doing this program. You can become a designer in various fields. It can be fashion designer, apparel designer, costume designer, or even a textile designer. One can also work as a fashion consultant. Research and development is another field which one can take up after doing this certificate course. Going into academics is another perk after doing this program. Getting into fashion houses or fashion studios as an intern is also a very good option post doing the certificate in apparel merchandising. The basic eligibility of the program is 10+2 in June and December. So what are you waiting for? Join this program and get an enriching knowledge in the field of apparel merchandising. And to do so, you can log on to the official website of the university, www.ignou.ac.in.
Welcome back to the teleconferencing session on this Food Safety and Standard Laboratory and Sampling Analysis Regulation 2011. So, Sweety Behera Madam is with us today on discussing this topic. So, Madam, we are discussing before the break that is different sampling procedure and recognition. So, you have mentioned that two different officers from the FSSI, that is one food safety officers and another one is the food analyst. That food safety officer collect the sample and that will send to the laboratory, then designated officer, then we can say one sample with the FBOs. So, what are the particular role and responsibilities of this food safety officer in context of, specifically we are talking about the laboratory. So, what are the roles and responsibility of this food safety officer in food safety and quality analysis?
So very important question it is, because any sample that reaches to food lab, it should be having its integrity from where it has been picked up. In no place the integrity should get lost. So the most important role and responsibility of a food safety officer is starting from the sample collection. So before I had spoken about that, how a food safety officer picks up 4 sets of samples and where does he send these 4 sets of samples, how he records those 4 sets of samples. Now there is a adherence to the procedures also. So as per FSS rule, there are laid procedures and forms are to be filled up by these food safety officers when they are sending or dispatching these samples to laboratories and back to designated officers. They have to write down the complete whenever a sample has been picked, it should be very carefully been sampled from the different batches, and the sampling procedures are there, how what number of samples are to be taken up. So suppose a food safety officer is going to pick handling and preparing the samples, then it is very important that the samples have been dispatched very properly to ensure that suppose you are picking up a milk sample, so it is very important that what is so by the time the sample reaches to a lab, it may not be in a condition for the fit for analysis. So it is very important that the food safety officer has to ensure before while handling the samples by the food safety officers, then they are able to meet the compliances and the enforcement that is detailed in the regulations and rules.
So, madam,
as I said, because there are food business operators in this country, so on a regular basis, food safety officers does a surveillance on the field, and if they find that this is very important for them to pick the sample from that particular food business operator premise, picks the sample. Whatever the outcome comes, if the sample analysis turns out to be safe, everything is in line with FSSR regulations, then there will be no prosecutions against the food business operators. If found that the sample that was sent for analysis has been is non-compliant to the set standards and regulations of FSSR, then there will be next course of actions, which we call it as penalties. So penalties can be in terms of imprisonment, or it may be in terms of suspension of their licenses, or in terms of compounding the penalties in terms of monetary penalties as well. So therefore we call it as legal samples. The prosecutions takes place. Now, as I said in my previous session, I talked about the appeal samples. There is also an opportunity given to food business operator, and also if a designated officer feels that the analysis report is dubious, or it is not correct, then he also has that power to send the sample, and this sample will be called as appeal samples, which I had already explained in my previous slide, which are known as referral samples or appeal samples. Any of the terminologies you can use it. These were the two types of samples. Now in the legal sample also you can consider as import products are also considered into it. Now comes the third set of samples, that is surveillance samples, because every time we cannot pick up the legal samples. At some point of time we have to put a surveillance radar also on the food business operators. So time to time surveillances also gives us a guidance that where the hotspot areas of adulterations or some unsafe category of production is happening. So once the food safety officers comes to know about those hotspot areas through these surveillance modes, then they will also start the legal sampling.
So this all samples analyzed by this laboratories, legal sample, then imported samples. So how this analysis of this sample contributed to the food safety and we can say compliance monitoring?
So I will show you a slide where how a food analyst plays a key role when it comes to the analysis of food. As I said that sample 1 reaches to laboratories. Now the sample 1 reached the laboratories. Now the first thing is that the food analyst has to check whether the sample is fit for analysis or not.
Okay.
So they have to observe it, whether it is okay or not. If it is not okay, how they will check? It is through the seal. If it is not okay, they will immediately write back to the designated officer that the following sample is not in the position to be analyzed. So send us a next set of sample. So you remember the sample 2 and sample 3 which is lying with DO. He will ask for that particular sample and a DO will send back the repeat and the sample to the food analyst. Now after the seal is intact, the analysis has been done. Once the analysis is complete, the result has to be given. Result has been given as per Form 7A. Form 7A. Form 7A mentions very important points into it. One is the result, obviously, what are the parameters that has been analyzed for a food product. Suppose it is atta. So, for example, as per the regulation, you have to analyze acidity, you have to analyze the total ash, you have to analyze the moisture, you have to analyze the pesticide content. So, once those parameters analysis is there, so result has been recorded on the Form 7A. What kind of method has been utilized? Because it is very important to know that there are certain methods to analyze a particular parameter. So this particular method is very, very important to be recorded in the analysis report, and a signature of a food analyst with its opinion. So opinion is also very, very important. As I said, there are 3 sets of opinion to be given. One is in the form of unsafe, misbranded and substandard. So as I said that there are 4 sets of copy the food analyst will generate of this particular analysis. 2 sets of copy will go to designated officer. 1 will go as a record to food safety officer. Given a chance from here that whether he wants to appeal it or whether he is satisfied with the report that has been generated by the primary notified lab. Now, after the food business operator sees the report and he is given an opportunity to challenge the report, he has been given 30 days time to appeal the samples, go for appeal procedure. So, it will be appealed to designated officer, and after the appeal has happened, the designated officer will send the second part of the sample to the food analyst. So this is what the process in a report, because we during that part of time we have to understand that the samples which have been picked from the premises of a food business operator, action has to be taken. So we have given 14 days of time to the primary notified labs, and in the case of appeal samples also, and for in case of import samples we are giving 5 days of time. Why 5 days of time for import samples? Because these are imported products and it cannot be kept for a longer time into the jurisdiction of a custom. So there are damages charges that goes on increasing, and we have to release the sample, and there are chances that there might be short shelf life samples also.
Yeah. Madam, in discussion, another word is coming after the food safety officer. Another word is coming repeatedly. That is food analyst.
Yes.
So, what are the role and responsibilities of this food analyst particularly?
So the role and responsibility of a food analyst is he has to abide by the format that he is giving his opinion.
Okay.
There are only two formats that has been given. One is Form 7A and Form 9. Form 7A is the primary notified analysis that has been done, the first set of analysis, and Form 9 is generated only when there are appeal cases coming in. This is very important. They have to ensure that the methods that they are utilizing for analyzing any kind of parameters on a product should be appropriate and should be as per the late standards of FSSAI. It's very important. The third point is that being a food analyst, they have to ensure that the report that is they are generating, because if you go back to my previous slides where I had spoken about ISO 17025. So in that ISO 17025, there are certain parameters and scopes the accreditation has been done. So it is the responsibility of a food analyst to know that which analysis is under the scope and which analysis is not under its scope. So every report should be given with an ISO 17025 accredited parameters only. Suppose a lab doesn't have accreditation for moisture in under ISO 17025, then if he records the results also, but that result will not be considered for any kind of opinion formation. It's very important for the lab and the food analyst to know that most all of the parameters should get accredited from their under ISO 17025. And the last part is that they have to ensure that the analysis is done in a set period of time.
Okay. So
in case there is a delay in the analysis timeline, they can immediately report back to DO or food safety officer with the reasoning that why there is a delay.
Okay, so this analysis particularly, this is suo motu analysis from FSSAI or any food business operator, they can send their product to the notified laboratories for analysis?
Food business operators can send their analysis on their own also.
Yeah.
They can get their samples analyzed on their own, because self-compliance should also be done by a food business operators. At the same time, FSSAI does its own legal prosecutions. So FSSAI will pick up the samples through the channel of food safety officers and then send them for the analysis.
Or it is mandatory to analyze the product, that is for FBOs. It is
mandatory. Yes. They should mandatorily analyze the samples once in 6 months.
Okay.
This is for their self-compliance. Because whatever products they are releasing to the market, it is their responsibility to ensure that the safety part has been taken care by the food business operators.
Yeah. You have mentioned that the particular lab is notified for the particular test analysis or specific test is given to the specific.
ABC lab is given example. It has a competency to do only milk parameters, milk and milk products. So under milk and milk products, they are supposed to do all the analysis. Suppose it may be milk fat, milk SNF, protein, nitrogen, whatever is applicable as per the FSSR regulations. And that should be under ISO 17025 scope.
So whatever the FSSI regulation is there, they will notify lab, then they will, FSSI structure is there, one food safety officer is there, they will collect the sample, then they will send to the lab, then food analyst is there. Yes. This food analyst is playing major role. So without sign of food analysis, we can't consider that report is valid. Okay. So what information is provided into that particular we can say report typically related to this analysis from the recognized whatever the laboratories are there, from which kind of information we will get? So, or this is mandatory?
Yeah. So most important is that as I said, there is a set form, that is Form 7A, and you see the Form 7A very well records that who is the food analyst first.
Okay.
So how important the role of a food analyst is here. Then from where did he got the sample? He has to mention the batch number as well. and then he has to mention that what category of it fits into.
Okay.
Suppose the food analyst has received a sample of paneer, and he has to mention that what is the category of that paneer as per FSSR.
Okay. Yeah.
Rightly, he has to capture it rightly. And then I said that before starting the analysis, he has to judge that whether sample is fit for analysis or not.
Okay.
First key points has to be filled up, and after that, if he finds that the fit for analysis was not appropriate, if the sample was not fit for analysis, he has to give its reason. On what ground? Maybe sample has spoiled, or there is a leakage in the sample. So in that case, they have to write it that the sample has been found damaged. Then they also have to mention how was the physical appearance of the sample. Is it okay, not okay, as per the regulations. Then comes here the quality characteristics. Quality means it also includes the safety aspects as well. Suppose if I take a very small example of the biscuit. So if the sample is of biscuit, they have to analyze total ash, they have to analyze acid insoluble ash, moisture, and then there are certain safety parameters. Suppose aflatoxin they have to analyze, or there might be some toxins to be analyzed, and depending upon whatever thing is been specified on which kind of product category as per the regulations. So they have to mention those parameters. Now used for analysis. So result has been recorded here. Result, once it is recorded, then they have to mention whether it is non-compliant or it is compliant.
Okay.
Now
that is as per the standards.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So once the complete result has been recorded, now the point is giving the opinion. Opinion is given only in three terminologies.
Okay.
One is unsafe, one is misbranded, and the other is substandard.
Okay.
Unsafe means microbiologically, if found to be out of norms, then it is totally unsafe. Or they have found some deleterious additives into it, which is very harmful to the body. It can be concluded as unsafe.
Okay.
Substandard means, suppose there was a product of atta, and the moisture level is maximum 12%. However, on analysis, it was found that the moisture level is 14%. Yeah. So then we call it as substandard, where it is not creating a health hazard to a public or consumer. And then misbranded. Misbranded is something like, as we say, advertisements they are doing or claims they are doing. Suppose they are writing that on the packet it doesn't have any sugar.
Yeah.
So on analysis, they find that there is a sugar content has been detected, and it turns out to be 10. However, there should have been only less than 0.1.
Okay.
So here comes the misbranded. So
they can give the comment like misbranded, then we can say
substandard or unsafe. So these are the key opinion terminologies that has to be well captured by the food analyst.
Yeah.
Because basis these three kinds of non-compliances, the penalties are being decided.
And whatever the analysis, whatever the things are there, this means this Food Safety and Authority of India, FSSI, has their own structure.
Yes.
They can take their own action also on the laboratory as well as
on the food business operator. Laboratories is different, but when it comes on these reports, basis these reports, they will take prosecutions against the food business operators.
Okay. Whatever the laboratory is notified by the FSSI, they all are NABL accredited.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the most important criteria for getting a recognition.
So, madam, one important question is there. We have discussed a lot of things related to the laboratory and their regulation, sampling, analysis to ensure the food safety and quality of the food. So, how the consumers will contribute in this food safety and quality as individual consumers?
See, consumers, obviously they can also, because as per Act, the consumer has also been given power to get their samples tested.
Yeah.
So, if I am a consumer, I can go to any of the grocery shop. If I find that the sample is not, I can get them tested in any notified laboratories. And the report, food analyst has to give this report to the consumer and a copy to designated officer.
Okay.
So this empowerment has also been given to a consumer.
Yeah, means if anything found
non-compliant to the regulations,
FSI will take the
Yes,
action on
yes,
that.
yes.
Okay, very good, madam. So we are at the last part of our program right now. So before going to propose the vote of thanks, I would like to say Indira Gandhi National Open University, the School of Agriculture, offering the different programs in the area of agriculture, food safety and food processing, like at postgraduate level, the MSc in Food Safety and Quality Management. At master level, that is another program is there, that is MBA in Agriculture, Agribusiness Management, then postgraduate diploma in Food Safety and Quality Management, postgraduate diploma in Agribusiness, then postgraduate certificate in Agriculture Policy, then diploma in fruits and vegetable value added products from fruits and vegetable, diploma in meat technology, diploma in dairy technology, then diploma in horticulture, then certificate in sericulture, certificate in organic farming, certificate in beekeeping, then awareness program on dairy farming. So this kind of program is offered through the School of Agriculture to equip the peoples, or to equip the rural as well as urban youth with the skills and knowledge to we can say transform this agriculture sector. So you can the whatever the admissions are there, enrollment are there, is going on in 2 sessions, that is January and July session. Right now admissions are open. You can visit our official website, that is www.ignou.ac.in, and you can enroll yourself in the program. So this program, this whatever the topic we have discussed, this topic is concerned with our health specifically, as we are eating food materials that is very important for our health and body. Also whatever the health is there, maintenance of body, and we are getting energy, we are doing work on from that one. So I would like to thank madam to coming into this program and sharing your views on this, specifically laboratory and sampling analysis regulation 2011, that is FSSI regulation is there. And I would like to thanks all our viewers, our audience and learners from the different corners of country. And I would like to also thanks to School of Agriculture and management, whatever the higher administration of Indira Gandhi National Open University. Thank you.
Are you interested in television journalism or radio journalism or online journalism? Or do you want to learn with the flexibility of open learning? Or if you are a working professional, wants to enhance your knowledge and skill with certification in the field of electronic media, then School of Journalism and New Media Study IGNOU offers PG Diploma in Electronic Media for you. This program includes audio and audio-visual program production for radio, television and online platforms. Here are some important details about the program. We have total 8 courses of 32 credits, 6 theory courses, 1 practical and 1 project. Eligibility: bachelor's degree in any subject. Minimum duration 1 year, maximum 3 years. Medium is English, but the students can write their examinations, assignments, practical and project in Hindi also. So if you are interested in television, radio or online media, please come and join IGNOU's PG Diploma in Electronic Media.
Hello and welcome to the session. In today's session, we will be discussing about how we can join, how different ways of joining tables in SQL. But first of all, we would like to know, why do we require joining of table? Well, by design of database management system, in order to reduce redundancy within the system, you break a particular table into multiple number of tables to minimize redundancy. And that is where when you have broken the table to minimize the redundancy, obviously your data is fragmented into multiple tables. Now when you require information from these multiple tables, once again, probably you need to join the data from different tables. And that is where joining using SQL becomes a very important operation. So join operation combines the data from two different tables on specific attributes. This joining is not random. We will be combining on some attribute which share the same domain. So that is the necessary condition. That means two tables you can join only if they have at least one attribute on the same domain. So the necessary condition for a meaningful join of two tables is each table should have at least one attribute on the same data domain. This attribute we will be calling as the joining attribute. Now the question is, when to use this join operation? Well, the simple answer is, we would like to use join operation on those cases when data is to be extracted from different table. Now what does this particular statements, whatever I have made, what these statements mean? Let us explain this with the help of an example. Well, what you see on your screen is basically a number of tables. Okay, there are 4 tables. What you can see, this is a typical application. So you have clients, okay, to a particular e-commerce website. E-commerce website also can have items. So clients, and there are items. Now client can make orders, right? So there is going to be an order table where a particular client has made a particular order. For example, client 001, C001 has made an order O001. So this is coming very clearly from here. So client has made an order, but in most of the cases, one order is not of one single item, right? So order may consist of several items. So that is what you see order details table comes in, where an order let's say O001, that particular order consists of item 02, item 03 and item 04, and the quantity purchased is mentioned over there. And then this particular item 02, which is item 02? It is pencil. Item 03, paper sheet, like that. Okay, and who is C001? He or she happens to be some name which we have given ABCD, but in an actual situation, this is going to have a proper name. So now what you can see is that the information is distributed among tables, right? So client information is in one table, right? And the item information is in another table. Order information is in another table, and order detail, right, information happens to be in another table. Now there can be different kinds of queries which we can conduct or which we can do on these tables. What can be different kinds of queries and what can be different kinds of joins, right? So that is what we would like to know. So let's take a very simple example first, and this query is very, very simple. That query is list the client ID, name of the client and their order IDs, whatever order this particular client has issued. But what we want is client ID and client name. Now, if I just look into table order, what it contains? Order ID and client ID, but it does not contain client name, right? So where exactly is client name? client name happens to be in the client name client table where client name is appearing. So obviously, in order to get the information from these two tables, we need to join these two tables. Now we need to see, is there any attribute which is onto the same domain? Well, you can see that the client ID in both the cases, here there is the client ID and this is also client ID. They happen to be onto the same domain, right? So this is what we want to do. Now the first kind of join which we can apply on these two tables, obviously what I want to do, it's something like this. I want the information. What information I want? Client ID, name and order ID. That is precisely we will put in the select clause. Obviously, we will be using a select query in this particular case with join. And what kind of join we are using at present? It's called the equi-join. What are the characteristics of equi-join? Equi-join basically works with equality condition. Okay, so equality condition between two attributes of the table, right? Of two different tables. So there has to be an equality condition. And what is the equality condition? Equals. So we'll look into this particular command later on. Okay, so first what we are wanting to output, okay, we want the output, we actually, before we go to select, let's look into from. So where is our data? So first we will list the table names in the from clause. So where our data is? Our data is in client table and order table, right? So that is where we are saying from client and order, we have given them an alias just so that we can shorten the query slightly, but otherwise you can keep their name client and order as it is. Okay, so these two tables we would be using. And what information we want as output? We will be putting C. C happens to be the client table. So client ID as well as client name from the client table, and order, once again client ID and order ID from the order table. This is typical of equi-join, that we are just displaying all the joining attributes, that is both the joining attributes in this particular case. One, the joining attribute happens to be client ID